And as we are in the midst of a maternal mortality crisis 3 times as deadly for women of color, ensuring that every woman can make her own decisions about her own body and has access to the care that ensures that she can, then we are going to have to come together and listen to one another and find not a democratic solution to this, but an American solution to this. If we want to make sure that we have an economy that works for everyone. Right now it works too well for too few, does not work at all for too many. When nearly half of school teachers in Texas are working a second or a third job just to make ends meet, though they have the most important job in front of them, that child whose lifelong love of learning, once unlocked, will allow them to do anything that they set their mind to, will allow this country by extension to do anything that we must. I want to make sure that that teacher, that public school educator, has just one job and that we pay her enough to focus on those kids. I want to make sure that education begins not in kindergarten universally at 5 years old, where some kids on the first day of school are 10 months back in reading comprehension, 12 months back in math, but at 4 years old in pre-K for every single one of our families. And then when I make sure that when they graduate, I want to make sure that when they graduate, they are both college ready to pursue higher education, debt-free, meaning free community college and debt-free public universities, but also career ready. The ability to connect with a union and an apprenticeship that will teach them a trade or a skill or a discipline they will have for the rest of their lives that will allow them to live with purpose and function and dignity and command a real paycheck that pays a living wage. At this moment that we've seen the diminishment of unions every year for the last 30 years, let us strengthen them again, because their strength is the strength of this country. It gives every graduating high school senior, it gives every returning service member in the Helmets to Hard Hats program, it gives every man whose job has been automated out of existence, every mom who's finished raising her kids and wants to return to the workforce, an opportunity to contribute to their maximum potential. This is something that we can do now, and we can do it together. And when it comes to rural America, I have yet to meet a rural American who wants a handout, who wants anybody's sympathy, who wants any pity. Instead, I meet farmers here, ranchers back in Texas, who want to make sure that they can make a profit. That's all they ask, to grow the food and the fiber that feeds and clothes not just America, but so much of the rest of the world. It allows us our food independence, and increasingly, especially in Iowa, our energy independence. Those same farmers also want to be able to do their part in combating climate change. They say, free us with the markets and technologies to plant cover crops, to capture more carbon out of the air, to use precision tilling and farming to disturb less of the carbon that is in the ground. Allow us to add value to the commodities that we once grew and the markets over which we have no control by keeping more of our young people in our communities, giving them more opportunities in high wage, high value, high skilled jobs, and partner with us on the infrastructure that we need. So much of rural America unable to get online, to finish their education, to look for a job, to start a business, to get what they grow to markets, to be able to find a date on Tinder or whatever your dating application is of choice. When I was sharing this story in Silverton, Texas, somebody stood up, said I was a first grader in 1937. Then Congressman Lyndon Baines Johnson and President Franklin Delano Roosevelt partnered with us. They said, if you will form a cooperative here in Silverton, Texas, we will extend electricity to you through the Rural Electrification Administration. Not a handout, not a giveaway, a partnership with the federal government. And that kid said, or that man said, that when he was a kid, first grade, he could read by electric light, just like the big kids in Chicago or Tokyo or London. He knew at that point that he mattered, that he counted, that his community was going to be competitive. And oh, by the way, he said, from that day forward, my daddy was a yellow dog Democrat. When we show up for people, when we listen to people, and when we deliver to people, wherever they are, writing nobody off, as JD wrote nobody off, taking no one for granted, listening to and learning from everyone, there is absolutely no stopping us. And lastly, given the challenges that we face right now. I mentioned our economy, I mentioned healthcare, I mentioned immigration. The Missouri River, the basin that flows into it, has received 4 times the runoff of an average year, and the greatest runoff as long as we've been keeping records on the Missouri River. Not too unlike Houston, Texas, which received 58 inches of rain from the sky, the landfall record for as long as we have been keeping them in all of North America. That was the third 500-year flood in just 5 years. The fires in California, the drought in Syria that presaged the Civil War and the greatest humanitarian disaster, the floods that you see every time it rains in Charleston, South Carolina, the droughts in the Panhandle and West Texas. These will only become more frequent, more severe, more profound, undermine our ability to live in the cities that we call home today, to grow what sustains us and so much of the rest of the world. The scientists who've warned us that it is our inaction as well as our emissions that has warmed the planet a degree Celsius just since 1980, and who say along this current trajectory, we will soon warm another degree, after which all bets are off on our ability to survive here where we are right now and perhaps anywhere on this globe. They also tell us we have a little more than 10 years left to us to take the bold, courageous change that is necessary to ensure our survival and, more importantly, the survival of our kids and our grandkids and those people of the future, the generations that will succeed us. So, if we are going to free ourselves from a dependence on fossil fuels, if we're going to invest in renewable energy technologies like wind here in Iowa, solar in my hometown of El Paso, and by the way, the 2 fastest growing jobs in this country are wind and solar. If we're going to make sure that we give farmers and rural communities a chance to play their part in our success, and if we are going to take our place once again on the world stage as the indispensable country to convene the other powers of the planet together to do what none of them could do on their own and what perhaps only the United States has proven she can do, then it is on all of us at this moment. The people of the future are counting on us, and we cannot be found wanting. So at this very divided, highly polarized, hyper-partisan moment, let us not be defined by our differences. Instead, let us be known by our ambitions, our aspirations, the resolve, the service, and yes, the sacrifice that we will employ in order to achieve them. That's why I'm running to serve you as the next president of the United States of America, and why I'm grateful to be here with you today in Des Moines. So thank you. Grateful to each and every one of you, and looking forward to answering your questions and hearing what's on your mind. Cynthia's got a microphone. If you'll raise your hand, she'll bring it over to you.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
First, a request. As president, I would like you to be bipartisan, and maybe as your first act, issue a request for a stamp in honor of Senator John McCain. That way we can all send our condolences to this idiot that we've got now and put a stamp on there with Senator John McCain's image on it. This morning in the New York Times, there was a very good yet flawed article on antibiotic resistance bacteria. So by 2050, in addition to our global climate change issues, we're going to have